Hello. In this video, I'm going to show you how I painted this view of the bridge at Landsford Canal State Park in South Carolina. Now, you'll notice that I look a little bit different in this video than in the video of me painting, and that's because this is filmed nearly a year later, actually close to a year and a half later. I filmed the other video in January of 2021. And also, because of that, some of the colors used in my palette may vary from what's actually, from what I'm basically remember using at the time. But suffice to say that the color mixes that I mentioned in the video will create similar or almost exact results to what I actually used at the time. So without further ado, let's get into the video and I'll show you how I painted this view.
So as I began working on the line drawing, I worked from general to specific, adding details where I deemed them necessary. As an artist, you have full authority over your work, and you really don't have to add every single detail. And this is really a process of learning. The more you do this, the more you'll become accustomed to adding detail where it really enhances a piece, and excluding detail where it either detracts from the finished product, or where it simply isn't feasible to capture in the amount of time, or perhaps adding that level of detail, you know, why paint it? You may as well just take a photo. Here I get out my watercolor palette and attach it to my sketch easel. This design was inspired by James Gurney with the addition of the magnetic board, which is my own concept. If there's any interest in how this works, I might make a separate video on this. So as I start actually painting my line drawing, I start with a wash of Hansa Yellow Deep, and it's got a hint of burnt umber, and the brush I'm using is a squirrel mop brush. And this is a pretty big brush. You really don't need to use this particular type. You can easily get away with, you get the same sort of result from like a flat brush, or recently I've started using the Hake brushes, which I believe Hake and brush mean the same thing. But those brushes are great. They're really inexpensive, and you can cover a lot of ground quickly. The main purpose of this section, or this part of the process, is just to cover as much ground as you can. With light washes, and the point of this is really just to create a foundation that you're going to build up from. And the way I achieved these lighter colors is just by using more water. Um, I typically don't mix white actually into the paint, although you'll see me do that at the very end, and in the very beginning of the intro clip I did that as well. So I mixed the bright green using Hansa Yellow Light and Ultramarine Blue, and I applied this wet on wet. And if you'll notice, most of the beginning of this painting is applied wet on wet, and this is not really intentional. Actually, if this is the heat of the summer, most of these washes would have dried too quickly to really do a whole lot of wet on wet technique. The weather is going to affect how quickly your paint dries dramatically, and you can use this to your advantage. Of course, wet on wet's very beautiful, and it's a style that a lot of people, they look for in watercolors. So the shadow underneath the bridge in that archway, it went on very, very dark. And if you'll notice, as the video continues, it sort of dries a lot lighter. And this is an effect that, again, really only happens with watercolor. And that's that your paints are always going to go on the page darker than when they dry. Here I've added in a number of stones in varying colors. I've really started blocking in some of the deeper colors in the leaves on the bottom left as well. And these colors in the stone, if you look at the canal, you know, uh, in the video here, it really does have quite a bit of variety. So one thing that I find helps my paintings is to add variety, and sometimes maybe more so than is actually there in real life. I think that exaggerating colors always makes something more interesting. This final outcome of this painting, it's mostly subdued, and it closely follows reality. But some of the brick colors, definitely I shift more towards the blue or more towards the orange than they are in real life. point in the painting, I realized that I haven't really added a lot of the foreground, and so I go in with this technique that I use quite often of layering in these short little jagged lines. And this is sort of to create the impression of the leaves and the little twigs on the ground. This is something that I do usually in winter scenes. This sort of effect, it'll create that kind of wispy, dead, uh, you know, uh, dry, leafless, lifeless mesh that covers the ground. Um, and I also, after this, I'm going in with a very fine, this is a zero size round brush. And I'm going through and I'm actually adding in basically a straight up black. I don't remember the exact mix I had here. I believe it's got a little bit of a purple in it. Uh, Probably using the ultramarine blue and the cadmium red with burnt umber, and just kind of going in and creating those lines in the masonry and the stonework. And as I move into the final touches of the painting, I'm working in white gouache. I enhance the remaining areas to really capture the dry grass and saplings. And basically, I'm going through and just kind of, this is to create the highlights. There's not really any white in this painting, or in the scene I'm looking at. The closest thing that comes to white is in the grout in between the stones, and also those twigs and branches in the foreground. Thank you for watching. This was my very first video on YouTube. I've recorded 2 other videos that are mostly salvageable, so they'll be coming out in the near future. If you found this video helpful or want to see more videos like this one, please like and subscribe, and also follow me on Instagram.